This is perfect as a recent report reveals a massive trade incoming for the Vikings that has us losing our minds, as this is exactly what Minnesota needs in their secondary. We're going to be breaking down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest. But first, if you guys want to stay up to date on all things Vikings and you're part of that 78% that's not subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any of the updates when they drop. And with that, let's hop right into it with the perfect trade. So as you guys have probably heard around the league, this offseason, the Miami Dolphins could send Jalen Ramsey to a new destination, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Ramsey and the Dolphins will mutually explore trade options. Teams interested in Ramsey would likely have to give up a middle round pick for him after his solid 2024 campaign, where he recorded 11 pass breakups and 2 interceptions while allowing a passer rating of 83.2 in coverage. Now, with Jalen Ramsey as well, there is another caveat on top of the draft picks you have to give up. Is given Ramsey's age at 30, potential suitors would likely balk at giving him an early round pick. Spot Track's Michael Giannini noted that any team that acquires the veteran quarterback would pay $21.1 million this year, with a more flexible contract structure after 2025. The acquiring team would essentially be taking on a 1-year, $21.1 million contract, with the remaining 3 years set up as a pay-as-you-go structure. Now, when looking at this, there's a handful of teams that could do this, and one of which that Bleacher Report is saying is the Minnesota Vikings, where they could give up a third-round pick, the number 97 overall pick, where, like the Los Angeles Rams that he explained in his example, the Minnesota Vikings would have to restructure contracts to make room for Jalen Ramsey, where right now our cap space is sitting at $18 million, where we can do a little bit more to make that work at the $21 million mark. To make room for Ramsey, that's a minor inconvenience in an attempt to patch up their defense. Minnesota re-signed Byron Murphy, a versatile cornerback capable of lining up on the boundary and in the slot. Defensive coordinator Brian Flores can mix and match him with Ramsey while the team figures out who can fill in the gaps alongside them. The Vikings haven't re-signed Stephon Gilmore, leaving a glaring need in the secondary. They signed a couple placeholder veterans, Isaiah Rodgers, Jeff Okudah, to fill the void ahead of the draft. Last July, Mekhi Blackman tore his ACL, and he only started in 3 games during his rookie campaign. Minnesota can target a cornerback early in the draft, though in a win-now mode, Ramsey makes sense as a quick-fix option to help a pass defense that finished 28th in total yards last season. And as the end of the article said there, with those stats, they performed pretty well in pass coverage, but they gave up a lot of touchdowns. And they gave up a lot of yards as well. 5th most in yards per game, tied for 19th most touchdowns, but they racked up 24 interceptions, which led the NFL, 95 pass deflections that also led the NFL, and they allowed the second lowest passer rating at 82.4. Ramsey could immediately come in and help boost those numbers after being targeted 71 times and allowing only 44 receptions on 462 yards and 3 touchdowns with that 83.2 passer rating. However, if the Vikings did want to make this move happen, they'd need to be comfortable taking over Ramsey's 3-year, $72.3 million extension he signed in September, which runs through the 2028 season. Now, all Minnesota would have to do is just work on just getting through this next season. You get through that season, you have him as a 1-year rental. If you want, you can try and trade him for something, maybe some draft picks if you want, or you restructure it so that it can be worked out with some other players. I know Jeff Okudah was one that they kind of brought in as safety valve. Maybe you let him go. I don't know. I think that's a move that a lot of Vikings fans weren't exactly too happy about when they signed Jeff Okudah because of his kind of just drop off or lack of reaching his ceiling that we thought he could reach when he was with Detroit over in Houston. Now he's in Minnesota. But like the article was saying, Isaiah Rodgers, he's a Super Bowl champion, though. He is somebody who is definitely worthy of a starting position. And obviously, if they're lining up with a lot more receivers, they're going to have some more corners in the game and things like that. However, Isaiah Rodgers isn't Jalen Ramsey. But on the other side of things as well, if you do bring in Jalen Ramsey, you don't have to worry about Jeff Okudah. You can kind of let him go. You have Mekhi Blackman there as a safety valve as well, where he was very impressive in his rookie season with what we saw in those little flashes and how he's been able to perform in training camp as well. Then you got Theo Jackson as well. So guys that are within the organization. So a guy that you just brought in, you can kind of trade him. Maybe you can do, that's actually a great idea, is what you can do is trade Jeff Okudah when the season starts, get some draft picks back that you're giving up to go and get Jalen Ramsey. Because as much as people want to talk about Jalen Ramsey's age, you look at the numbers, you look at the stats, the dude is a machine. 24 interceptions is nothing to scoff at. Yeah, he's only got 1 pick six, but pick sixes are hard to come by. And 24 interceptions, great. Had 4 interceptions with those 2 seasons with the Rams as well. And this is a guy that, don't forget, This is a guy that's been in the league for 9 years. He's made the Pro Bowl 7 times. So more often than not, he's a Pro Bowl corner. So why wouldn't you want to go out and get him? Yes, he is at 30 years old and he still had an impressive season last year. He was still pretty solid and still proved he can be a shutdown corner and a difference maker in the secondary. But there also is the drama that comes along with it. There has been a long history of drama with him and other teams, Jacksonville, LA, now Miami as well. However, the problem in Miami, I think, is more of a culture problem than a diva problem. I think with what they've kind of built there and what they've had with Stephen Ross there is just absolutely a dumpster fire. And it makes sense for Jalen Ramsey to want to get out. Now, the big thing that we're looking at with a lot of these drama players or these diva players is look at the teams that they're playing on. Unless it's a rare case where a player is in a perfect situation, they absolutely torch it like Antonio Brown was. You have a player where Jalen Ramsey, if he's coming into Minnesota, there's not going to be a lot for him to complain about. Brian Flores is already there. Kevin O'Connell is already there. There's a previous connection with Brian Flores, obviously. And then you have that added prospect of, okay, you're in a system of veterans for the most part, a lot of young guys as well too, that you can be a bridge type player and a mentor while also just being an absolute stud, being a great tandem with Byron Murphy, where we could have a very much almost like how Patrick Peterson retired yesterday. This could be almost like a Patrick Peterson 2.0, where we bring in a veteran shutdown corner on the maybe the twilight of his career, who knows, but still having a lot of gas left in the tank and still having a lot to offer, especially to a team that is in a win now mode. Ramsey finally got his ring when he was with the Rams. Now he's looking for a second one. And if he's doing it in Minnesota, obviously we're going to take it. But the thing is the age, the contract, and the drama. The drama, I don't think that will be a problem for Minnesota just because of how good the culture is, how great our team just is as far as morale, locker room. There's not a lot of drama in Minnesota. Can't say that for the Miami Dolphins necessarily. So you have that taken care of. Okay, then you have the contract. Well, we have $18 million left for this year. You restructure a few to kind of just offload them as to pay later rather than pay now. You can just free up those extra $3-4 million to go out and get Jalen Ramsey to be able to pay him for just this year and just get through this season and worry about the ramifications of it next year when you can afford to move around a few more pieces, because JJ McCarthy will still be there, obviously, but this is going to be his first year as a starter. You want to make sure that he has absolutely every single best possible piece, especially when we only lost 3 games in the regular season last year. Yeah, we got exposed in the playoffs, but that is in the past now, and we went out and we tried to fix those problems. Bolster down the offensive line, bolster down the defensive front, get some guys in secondary, re-sign some guys as well, bring back Harrison Smith. So if we have that going for us and we fix some things and we only got better from a team that was 14-3, yeah, we're going to have a harder schedule next year because of how we played and how last year we had an easy kind of schedule playing against AFC and NFC South teams. That's not going to be the case this year. There's going to be some tough teams we're going to be going up against, Chargers being one of them as well. So yes, there's going to be some tough tasks for Minnesota to be able to repeat or improve on that success from last season. However, with the pieces that they've went out and gotten, they're poised to be able to do that as long as JJ McCarthy is everything that we've hoped he can be, and maybe even not. Even if he's just a little bit less than what we hoped he could be, it's still going to be good enough for us to get somewhere in this upcoming season because of the pieces that we have around him that can kind of make that extra difference. So it's not going to be all on JJ McCarthy's shoulders for his first year starting. He can let off a bit of the pressure to guys like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Mason, and among others on defense. We got Harrison Smith, potentially Jalen Ramsey, Byron Murphy, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. We have so many dogs on defense, and that's not even mentioning Andrew Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman either. So yeah, we have a lot of guys on this team that can make differences, and that's where we've seen these championship teams go, where Jalen Hurts, he's a great quarterback, don't get me wrong, but you look at how that Eagles team was when he was playing almost at the same caliber 3 seasons ago when they lost to the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. And then you look at the shift where he got better, obviously, as a quarterback, but the team around him got so much better. And that Eagles team was a lot scarier than the Eagles team that made the Super Bowl a few years prior. So Minnesota is in a similar situation like that with JJ McCarthy, where you had Sam Darnold be the punching bag. Now you go out and get some pieces and make sure that you can have that poised for success. And I think Jalen Ramsey is that extra cherry on top that can be what sets us apart. Because if you have a secondary where you have Harrison Smith, Jalen Ramsey, Byron Murphy, Ivan Pace, and all these other guys as well, it's going to be very tough to make a lot of plays. Isaiah Rodgers as well, just won a Super Bowl. You have so many playmakers on defense that if you add Jalen Ramsey there, who already has Brian Flores there, already has the established connection with him, and that can just make magic right off the bat, because if there's not a lot of drama, you're set. Then everything else just kind of falls into place where, yes, there is some very big things and obstacles standing in Minnesota's way of making this deal happen. However, I think in this case, especially with the draft position we're in, where we're seeing all these things about Minnesota trading back, trying to stock up draft picks, why go and gamble on a draft pick and a secondary that you have pretty good surety in, where you're 60% sure of the guys you got there, 40% maybe not so much, or 70-30, however you want to look at it. Why go out and do that when you can go out and get 80-20 or 90-10, where you have Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, Jalen Ramsey, and Theo Jackson? I think that is pretty damn solid of a defensive back secondary and cornerbacks. But what do you guys think about all of this? I know it's been a lot to process as far as the prospect of getting Jalen Ramsey. I would absolutely lose my mind if we were to make this happen, and everyone's going to say it's the age or that he's going to be starting to get washed up soon. Look at what Patrick Peterson did. Yes, he didn't make a Pro Bowl with us, but he was able to come over and make a difference. And we just saw the other day how, with our last video, how much of an impact he had, if you guys want to go and check that out. But with this, I really think there's an opportunity here to kind of repeat history and bring in Jalen Ramsey, a veteran, shutdown corner who still has a lot of great ball left in him. Yes, it'll be expensive, but it'll be worth it for one season, especially if you can bring home a Lombardi and he is leading it. If this happens, I might be more excited for this than I was when we signed Brett Favre back in the day. Even as a kid, I thought that was unimaginable. I'd never thought that would happen in a million years. Jalen Ramsey was the same thing, where even in Jacksonville, I thought he would be great to pair with Xavier Rhodes back in the day. That would have been so awesome to watch. And especially when Patrick Peterson got there, if he was playing with Pat P, that would have been so cool to watch as well. So over his entire career, this isn't just recently that I've been wanting Jalen Ramsey coming to Minnesota. I just didn't think it was possible until now. Until now, I just thought it was a far cry for the entire time of his career, because in Jacksonville, he got paid a lot of money, suddenly left there, goes to the Rams. Then he goes and wins the Super Bowl. Well, okay, seemingly untouchable there. Then he goes to the Dolphins. Well, Dolphins, they got Tyreek Hill, Tua, and Mike McDaniel. They have this changing culture that they want to try and do. He's not going to be touchable. And now he wants out. Miami wants him out. Minnesota, we want him for sure. I definitely think that this is something that Minnesota, Kwesi is definitely licking his chops going, all right, let's go and try and make this happen, because you signed Jeff Okudah when you didn't think this was going to happen. So, yeah, you brought in Jeff Okudah, you paid him, whatever, get him out the door. Bring in Jalen Ramsey, trust in the guys that have already been in Minnesota rather than a guy who just got here. And if the skill set is a little bit off kilter, you can at least make up for it in team morale and team building within their organization, how they've ingrained within this culture already. But what do you guys think about all of this and the Jalen Ramsey stuff? Are you as excited about me as the prospect of getting him? Or do you guys think you're on the more cautious side or on the Aaron Rodgers side of things, where absolutely not, stay away from him with a 10-foot pole? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.